Marguerite Alibert was born in Paris in 1890. Her family was poor, and her father worked with horses for the city. She grew up with very little comfort or security. Life for working-class families in Paris at that time was difficult, and children had few opportunities to escape poverty. Marguerite was expected to live a quiet life of hard work and modest means, but she dreamed of something else. She wanted glamour, luxury, and a chance to rise above her lowly beginnings. Her life took a dramatic turn when, as a teenager, she became pregnant. The father of the child was a wealthy man who abandoned her, leaving her alone and desperate. She gave birth to a daughter named Raymonde, but as a single young mother she had little support. She was sent to a Catholic orphanage for fallen girls, where she was expected to learn sewing and other domestic skills that could help her find respectable employment. But Marguerite had no interest in becoming a servant or living a life of quiet struggle. She wanted more. From an early age, she showed a determination to reinvent herself and escape the limits of her background. As she grew older, Marguerite discovered the hidden but powerful world of Parisian courtesans. These women were not wives or respectable ladies, but they lived in wealth and comfort by forming relationships with powerful and rich men. They were admired for their beauty, style, and charm, and many lived more extravagantly than noble women. To enter this world required confidence, cleverness, and the ability to attract influential lovers. Marguerite, with her striking looks and quick wit, fit the role perfectly. She reinvented herself as Maggie Meller and soon became known among bankers, aristocrats, and politicians who were willing to spend fortunes on women like her. For Marguerite, being a courtesan was not only about luxury, but also about survival. She had grown up with nothing, and she did not want to return to poverty. By her 20s, she had established herself as a woman who could move in high society, even if only on its edges. She received apartments, clothes, jewels, and a steady flow of money from her lovers. While society judged her, she lived on her own terms and refused to accept the limitations of her background. One of the most extraordinary episodes of her life came during the First World War, when she met Prince Edward of Wales. Edward, the future King Edward VIII, was stationed in France during the war. In 1917, he was introduced to Marguerite, and the two began a secret affair. Edward was young, lonely, and inexperienced. He quickly fell under Marguerite's spell. The affair lasted for several months, and Edward wrote Marguerite a series of deeply personal love letters. These letters were passionate, naive, and very revealing about the prince's private feelings. For Marguerite, the affair was a triumph. Not only had she seduced the heir to the British throne, but she also held letters that could one day serve as powerful leverage. She kept them hidden, knowing their value. Years later, when her life was in danger of collapsing, those letters would play an important role in protecting her. By the early 1920s, Marguerite was no longer the mistress of a prince, but she continued to live well. In 1922, she married Ali Kamel Fahmy Bey, a young and very wealthy Egyptian aristocrat. Fahmy was the heir to an enormous fortune, and he offered Marguerite not only financial security, but also the glamour of international travel and high status. At first, their marriage looked like a fairy tale. They traveled between Paris, Cairo, and London, staying in the best hotels and living a life of luxury. Marguerite enjoyed expensive clothes, jewelry, and a place at the very center of fashionable society. But the marriage quickly turned sour. Fahmy was controlling and often jealous. He expected Marguerite to obey him, while she was used to independence and admiration. The cultural differences between them were wide, and their personalities clashed constantly. Their arguments became famous among their acquaintances. Some described Fahmy as cruel and hot-tempered, while others saw Marguerite as manipulative and cold. Whatever the truth, their relationship was stormy and filled with suspicion. Many who saw them together predicted that the marriage could not last. The prediction proved tragically correct in July 1923. That summer, the couple was staying at the luxurious Savoy Hotel in London. On the night of July 9th, after yet another heated argument, the situation exploded. In the early hours of the morning, guests at the hotel were startled by the sound of 3 gunshots. When staff rushed to the suite, they found Ali Kamel Fahmy lying on the floor, shot dead. Marguerite had fired the shots with a revolver. She appeared shaken but calm, and she immediately claimed that she had acted in self-defense. She said that her husband had been violent and that she feared for her life. The killing at the Savoy shocked London society. A glamorous French woman, a wealthy Egyptian aristocrat, and one of the city's grandest hotels combined to create the perfect scandal. Newspapers rushed to cover the story, and readers were fascinated. It was a story of wealth, sex, jealousy, and violence, all played out in a setting of luxury. Marguerite was arrested and charged with murder. Her trial, held at the Old Bailey, became one of the most sensational of the decade. From the very start, the trial was surrounded by intrigue. Journalists uncovered Marguerite's past and hinted at her connections with powerful men. But one detail was carefully kept out of the courtroom: her affair with the Prince of Wales. The British royal family was terrified that Edward's love letters to Marguerite might be revealed in public. Such a scandal could damage the monarchy. To protect him, the judge ruled that her past relationships, including the affair with Edward, could not be mentioned in court. This meant that the jury never heard about her time with the prince or the letters she had saved. In effect, the royal family was quietly shielded from embarrassment, while Marguerite stood trial for her life. Marguerite's defense team worked hard to present her as the victim. They described her husband as violent, abusive, and unstable. Witnesses were brought in to testify about the couple's many arguments and Famy's temper. The picture painted was of a frightened woman who had been bullied and mistreated, a wife who had finally acted out of desperation to save herself. Marguerite, dressed elegantly and behaving with calm dignity in the courtroom, supported this image. She did not look like a dangerous criminal. Instead, she appeared as a woman wronged, a woman forced into a terrible act by a cruel husband. The prosecution argued that she had killed Famy deliberately, but they faced challenges. First, public opinion in London was not sympathetic to an Egyptian man. Prejudice and racism colored much of the reporting. Famy was described as an outsider, a foreigner who mistreated a European woman. Second, the absence of Marguerite's past in court, including her long career as a courtesan, meant that the jury did not see the full picture of her character. Finally, her lawyers were skilled in playing to the sympathies of the jury, portraying her as a woman who needed protection. After days of testimony and drama, the jury gave their verdict. To the surprise of many, Marguerite was acquitted. She was found not guilty of murder and walked free. The decision was celebrated by some, but it outraged others, especially in Egypt, where Famy's family and supporters saw it as a miscarriage of justice. They believed that Marguerite had benefited from prejudice, clever lawyering, and the hidden influence of the British establishment. For Marguerite, the trial marked both the peak and the decline of her life. She had survived one of the most public scandals of the decade and avoided a possible death sentence. But her reputation was forever damaged. She could no longer live as she once had, surrounded by wealth and powerful lovers. Instead, she lived more quietly, her name remembered mostly for the shocking events at the Savoy Hotel. She kept the prince's letters hidden away, a reminder of the strange power she once held. She lived on for many years, finally dying in Paris in 1971 at the age of 80. By then, her story was almost forgotten, overshadowed by later scandals involving King Edward VIII, who would give up his throne in 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson. Marguerite Alibert's life remains fascinating because it contains so many elements of drama. She rose from poverty to move in royal circles. She reinvented herself repeatedly, turning her beauty and ambition into tools for survival. She was connected to one of the most famous kings in modern history, even if their affair remained hidden during her lifetime. She married into enormous wealth, only to see it end in violence and death. And she stood trial in a case that revealed the power of prejudice, politics, and secrecy in shaping justice. The story of the Savoy Hotel murder continues to raise questions. Did Marguerite truly act in self-defense? Or did she kill Fahmy in cold blood? Did the British royal family play a secret role in protecting her to keep Edward's name out of the newspapers? Was her acquittal the result of skillful legal strategy, or was it a reflection of the racism and sexism of the time? These questions may never be fully answered, but they show why her story still captures attention a century later. In the end, Marguerite Alibert was a woman who lived by her wits in a world that gave her few choices. She used her charm, intelligence, and ambition to escape poverty. But the price of her reinvention was scandal, danger, and a life always lived on the edge of respectability. Her trial at the Savoy Hotel remains one of the most shocking episodes in legal history. A case where the lines between justice and power, truth and secrecy were blurred. It is the story of a woman who dared to reinvent herself and of a society eager to be scandalized but unwilling to confront the full truth.